Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Miss McNulty's Art Show. And I'm telling you today, Achievers, we have a good one because today we're going to discuss one of Mr. McNulty's favorite art styles, and that is the Mosaic. And it's over 4,000 years old, and we have the Mayans to thank for it. So in history, we went over last week a little bit of an intro to the Mayan culture. So we did a little bit of intro to Mayan art. This week in history, you were introduced a little bit to about how they worship the sun, and one of the ways that they would sort of commemorate what they worshipped was by creating an image, and they would create that image using mosaic. So you and just not to commemorate what they would worship, but actually to sort of help their hierarchy and their social standing. So you may be thinking to yourself, Mr. McNulty, what is a mosaic? Well, let's get to it right now. So, what is a mosaic in art? A mosaic in art is an image made from assembling small pieces of differently colored and shaped material. So that could be glass, that could be stone, that could be rocks, that could be whatever they could find and put their hands on. And that's important because today's project, you're going to be creating your own mosaic, and you're going to be doing that by using different colors and by different shapes. So shapes are super important in today's lesson. So we went over a little bit how in the beginning that it's 4,000 years old and was originated in Mesoamerica. So that is your Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, right in that sort of central Mexico area. And it included the Mayans over 4,000 years ago. So the thing about mosaics is that it's beautiful artwork, it's durable, it's low maintenance, and it was built to survive. So we think about how last week we talked about how they created their artwork on slabs and tablets, and they would use ceramics and pottery where they would put it in a kiln and heat it up and preserve that artwork forever. Well, the thing about kilns and about their climate is that it was so hot that it could overheat and their pottery and ceramic would explode, right? So rather than just saying, oh no, it's lost forever, my artwork, they would take those pieces that exploded in the kiln, whether it be the glass or the stone or the clay, and they would then assemble it onto another wet piece of clay, and they would put that back in the kiln. And this is where they would get even more different colors, right? So last week we said, all right, we can only use brown, orange, reds, greens. Well, by having it heated up again, it generated more colors. It made a blue, it made a purple, it brought back all the secondary colors, and it brought back primary colors. So now we have warm colors, cool colors, and we can create beautiful pieces of artwork in these mosaics. So again, the minds were so smart. Rather than say my artwork is lost, they had a new art style that they said we're just going to assemble all these pieces and we're going to make our artwork again. So let's take a look a little bit more about the about Mayan art mosaics. We have the different symbols of wealth, heritage, and social standing. So the first one you see here is the sun. They worship the sun, so they use different shapes. We have brick-like shapes. We have that are painted to actually form a circle. If you take a look at the right, we have our circled pieces, our ovals, are from gems that were used to actually create sort of more shapes. We have squares, we have rectangles that are skinny. So they used all their different shapes and they assembled them. Now, the thing about mine is they just weren't flat. They just didn't do flat artwork. They actually used it in sculpture. And one of the ways to sort of show that they had a different hierarchy and a higher position within that Mayan society was creating masks. So right here we have an example of a mask that they sculpted, and they took those different pieces of stone, glass, rock, whatever they could put, and put it right there on the mask. So you even see here the eyes were cut out in a circle so they could actually kind of see through it. So now if we're talking a little bit about these Mayan mosaics, let's take a look at how this artwork just continued to evolve. We can see that they said, all right, we can add this on our quilts. So we talked about how last week they used symmetry on quilts and clothing. Well, they took that mosaic idea and added it to a quilt. So now let's see even more modern examples. We see here on the left is just a standard dolphin pattern. They use different squares and different values and uh, different colors and values of that blue, right? So they have their different intensities because we have light blue, we have a medium blue, we have a dark blue, and we have a white. So they're using different values of colors, different values of blue, and different intensities of blue. So we take a look in the middle, and that is actually a mosaic by Picasso. Now, Picasso was a cubist, so he said, let me put actual and literal cubes on my artwork. So he used the Mayan mosaic style, and he created his portraits with just different shapes and different colors. Remember, shapes and colors. So we see Picasso, and then we can even see a more modern artist in Chuck Close here. Now, each of his shapes are hand painted. So he uses a variety of shapes and colors to create eyes, to create noses. So that's his way of sort of building upon the mosaic idea. And an even more modern mosaic right here, Nintendo. We see Mario, we see Luigi, and they're made of pixels. And pixels are just squares that are different colors to create an image. Sound familiar? Yep, it's a mosaic, right? So our mosaic is assembling different shapes and different colors and putting them together to make an image. We see right here Super Mario World, where we see Mario on Yoshi. If we take a further look into it, we see that everything is a square. Everything is a different color. It's those pixels put together generate art, just like a mosaic. So now for our artwork, you're going to take your piece of paper and you're going to actually start drawing an image. And how we're going to color this is only by shapes. We're going to use at least 3 shapes you're going to need for your project. So you're going to need either squares, circles, triangles, right? It can be, as long as you have 3 different shapes to color this bad boy in, you're going to be great. So I know the past couple weeks I was using Spider-Man as an example. So this week I'm going to change it up and do Batman. So let's go bring up my artwork and see how we give you a better idea of how we're going to color this thing in. Okay, so here we go. We're back, and we have Miss McNulty's Batman image that he drew. So I love this logo. It's very familiar. So, but I added a little Mr. McNulty twist to it, right? So I have Batman, I have the text, and I have his face. So how I'm going to color this in is by using my different colored shapes. So I know I want to use blue for his cape and his wings, sort of in the background there. So I'm going to fill in that whole color with, I'm going to pick triangles. I'm going to pick like a dark blue triangle. So let's start coloring these in. Now what's great about using colored pencils or marker or whatever coloring devices you have at home is that you have a lot more control over it. So see how I can start with just putting a dark blue triangle here. Let's color that in. Now, when you're assembling your shapes by drawing them in, you're going to make sure that there's some space between them. So what Ms. McNulty is going to do is actually keep that space where that triangle forms that negative space naturally. So I really don't have to go out of my way to keep a little space between it. So here's what I'm talking about when it comes to doing it by hand. See how I'm going into this A? For my text, I want to use circles and I want to use yellow. So I don't want to color that in. So if you're doing it by hand, you can actually control how you're going to color that, right? So you don't have to worry about by doing digitally it going over your black lines. So you can continue that shape, go behind there. So you can continue those shapes around your areas. Now, I'm going to keep going on the top here, so I'm going to continue my pattern on top of those 2 triangles. Color that in, connect it to the other one. Color that triangle in. Now, if you take a look at this bottom row here, you can actually see that by creating this pattern, it is creating other triangles. So the negative space between these triangles are generating another triangle. So I'm going to color those in probably with a lighter blue to make it pop, to make it stand out. So we have dark blue, we have light blue, and that's how you're going to use your mosaic idea of coloring the coloring an area. So what I'm going to do is I want to make the sort of the text yellow. Batman has that bright yellow text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my shape. So I already have triangles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do circles. So I'm going to do a nice bright yellow. I'm going to start doing just like we did with our Ben-Day dot projects for pop art, and start making circles next to each other. See how I'm leaving that bit of space between these circles? So you can continue your pattern between. And again, like I said, you can control it. Since we are doing this with either colored pencil marker, you can go in and just sort of make a half circle to give that appearance that a circle is going through the other side. So sort of keeping that mosaic idea alive. So you can go in, and then what I'll probably do is go in and color between those with a darker yellow, sort of make these original circles pop out. So probably use squares for squares to color in the face, and maybe a light blue square in the background. So when you're done actually filling in all the different colored shapes to color this area, you should have something that looks like this. So Mr. McNulty continued his triangle pattern throughout. He used dark blue. The negative space created that light blue. And I have my bright yellow circles with that sort of goldish yellow, darker color in the background. And what I did was I used squares, and I made that sort of a flesh tone to sort of bring out that Batman face there. So I've used multiple shapes. I've used at least 3, and that's what you're going to use for your project. You're going to use at least 3. You can even say that this shape here and the eyes is sort of an organic shape. So I have squares in the background to give it a light blue. I have the triangles in the middle to give dark and light blue to make it pop. And I have my circles of yellow to create the text. So think about it. Mosaics are really fun. They're really durable. And what's exciting about this is we're going to continue this lesson next year when we're in our building and back at school, because we're going to take what we have, these drawings that are colored and shapes, and we're actually going to create our own 3D mosaics. We'll have clay, you can bring in rocks, you can bring in whatever shapes you want, and we'll actually assemble it. But for now, we're going to just use paper, we're going to use pencil, we're going to color it in using at least 3 different shapes, and you can color it any way you want, because by this time the Mayans, they were cooking literally with their kiln and their pottery and making new colors. So thank you very much. Let's get ready. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and let's get ready for those exit tickets. Bye now.